Set! 180! 180! 180! 180! Set!
If the quarterback situation ain't right, then the whole offense is corrupt.
Set!
You can't sell me hope if you ain't got a quarterback.
Set! 180! 180! 180!
That fantasy pick might look good on paper, but what's his role?
Set!
You don't win your fantasy league on draft night. You win it with everything you do before and after.
Welcome to Football is Money, where every snap has a price. Every decision has value. And every Sunday, somebody gets paid. Let's get it! Football is money! That's the mission. Fantasy betting every division. Every touchdown, every decision. We don't chase hype, we chase precision. Football is money. We cashing out, breaking every matchup, no doubt. If it makes dollars, then it makes sense. Welcome to Football is Money. Monday film, Friday picks, Sunday tickets, watch them hit. Fantasy lineups, betting slips, power rankings, championships, quarterbacks, pocket clean, read defenses, know what they mean. No hot takes, no guessing games. We bring numbers, we bring names. Football is money. That's the movement. Every episode, constant improvement. In NFL, college too. If football matters, we're talking to you. Cowboys corner, cash in the end zone, fantasy life, coach mode, QB power, draft grades every week, new plays. We don't follow, we evaluate, find the value, separate, because Vegas sets the line. Football is money, reads between the signs. Football is money. Louder now. Turn it up. Hear the crowd. Every season, every play. Football is money every day. This is Football is Money. Real football. Real talk. Real money. Let's eat.
Oh, welcome back to Football is Money, man. I'm your host, they call me Boss, and this is the opening snap, all right? My fantasy family, we almost there. Most drafts are wrapping up. A lot of these rosters are taking shape. Injuries are creating new opportunities, and right now this is a good time for fantasy managers to start separating themselves from the other fantasy managers, all right? Because your draft is not the final test. It's not the finish line. It's only the halfway point, right? So today we're going to be talking fantasy tips, sleeper, waiver navigation, trending ads, and the players you need to be watching before the season even starts. So we're going to see who's still cheap, who's the injury away from a major role, who's sitting on waiver wires right now that could matter in a couple of weeks, and just as important, who you willing to move on from to make room for the next opportunity. Because we're not just waiting for somebody to score 20 points before we realize that they actually matter. We're trying to see it before everybody else does, right? So get your roster pulled up, get your waiver wire open, and let's go find some value, man. Again, I'm your host, they call me Boss, and this is Football is Money. Let's get into some fantasy talk, man. Hey, make sure y'all tune in Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We talking fantasy football. We talking betting lines. And most importantly, we talking money. So don't be the last in to cash in. All right, my fantasy family. Before we start talking about sleepers, waiver ads, and all of those guys moving up the boards, I want to hit on a few things that matter right now. All right, because this is the part of fantasy where people start getting too comfortable with the team that they drafted. And I'm telling you right now, don't get too attached to your draft. All right, you drafted the roster. Cool, cool, cool. That don't mean that every player deserves to stay on it. Okay, just because you drafted them, don't mean that that's how your team gonna look moving forward. All right, Your job now is to keep improving it, keep improving your team. So, uh, I got a few tips. So, number one, I'm gonna tell you, don't get attached to your draft. Sometimes we hold on to players just because we drafted them, and I think that's a mistake. Honestly, if the role changes, if somebody gets buried on the depth chart, if another player is clearly taking over, then you got to be willing to move on, man. Don't just hold on to these guys because you feel like I drafted them, and you just hoping all year that something big happened for them. It's okay. It's okay. Your draft was a snapshot. The league keep changing, and your roster should change with it. All right. Be flexible. You gotta be flexible. Let's see. Number two, I say watch opportunity, not just the talent, because sometimes talent can get buried in bad situations. So we all know everybody likes talent, but fantasy football is about touches, targets, snaps, red zone work, first team reps. All right. A talented player with no role does not help your fantasy team. And a less exciting player getting 15 touches a game, they can win you some weeks. So pay attention to who's actually getting the opportunity. All right. Not just who got the bigger name. Uh, Too many times people get caught up on names, man. And we all know they have names for a reason, but it's more than the names that's producing in these games week in and week out. All right. Number three, I'm gonna say keep at least one bench spot flexible. So this is one of the biggest things you can do, right? Don't lock every bench spot into somebody you refuse to move, obviously, because then you can't maneuver or do things with your team. So you got to keep one spot where you can react. A running back get hurt, you can drop the backup. A rookie start climbing the depth chart, you can move and go grab them. A receiver start getting first team reps, you can go. You know what I'm saying? Be flexible. That flexible roster spot, it gives you options. And in fantasy, man, options really, really matter. All right. Let's see. I got another one. Number four, we'll say know your waiver rules before week one. I mean, you should already know it right now, but especially make sure you go and double check because this sounds simple, but people still mess this up all the time. You need to know is your league FAAB? Is it rolling waivers, reverse standing? What day do waivers process? Is it a daily waiver wire? Do players lock at kickoff? Can you drop bench players after they play? How long are players on waivers? You know what I'm saying? So know the rules to your league because understanding your league settings can just be as important as knowing these players that you need to draft, especially in the season when everybody is trying to make moves and a lot of people trying to get the same people. All right. So let's see. We got another one, man. Injuries create opportunity. This is number five. We've already seen a lot of injuries this preseason. And the wrong way to look at this is, damn, that player got hurt. You know, we feel bad for him anytime a player get hurt for sure. But the better question is who benefits from that said player getting hurt? Who gets the carries? Who gets the targets? Who moves up the depth chart? It's very important. So for every player that go down, somebody got to fill in. All right. And you got to be trying to see who are getting those reps now, because every injury, every year creates a new fantasy story. And a lot of times the value isn't the injured player, it's the player behind them. It's crazy, right? I know it. But that's how it goes sometimes. So just to wrap everything up, your draft, it gave you a roster, but your decisions from here determine what that roster becomes. All right. And this is where the good manager starts separating themselves, man. You got to stay active. You got to watch the news. You got to know the depth charts. You got to know snap count. Not, I know it sounds like a lot, but it's easy to be tuned in if you really love the game, right? And like I said, you got to know your waiver system, and that's a big one. And Also, you got to be willing to make the moves before everybody else see the same thing. That's where you really have an edge. Because by the time you notice somebody scoring 20 points, everybody know. You know what I'm saying? The value is seeing it before it happens. All right. And that's where we're gonna go next, man. We're gonna talk about some sleepers, some guys who might still be a little cheaper. Ha ha. You ain't know your boy had bars. I know it. All right, so we're gonna talk about some people who might still be sitting there late in your draft and some guys who could become a whole lot more valuable once the season starts. So let's get into these sleepers, man. Real quick before we move on. Check out the tips. Check out the tips. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the sleepers. We going to the sleepers. All right. So when I say sleeper, I'm not talking about somebody who we all know is gonna go in round five, six, four, whatever. I'm talking about players where the price doesn't match the opportunity yet. Some of these guys I want late in the draft. Some I'm taking last round shots on them. Uh, Maybe even some of these guys probably can fall to the waiver wire and not even get drafted at all. You know, and but I think I want all of their names on the watch list because remember what we just talked about. We want to see it before everybody else does. That's every time. So, let me see. I got Tyler Shook up there. I think he's a late round pick. I done seen him fall late in the draft, especially a single quarterback league. So y'all already know I've been talking about these Saints, and he's still there late. So he's around his ADP is like 153, QB 21, roughly 12, 13 round. So the current projection got him around 4,200 passing yards, 300 rushing yards, 28 touchdowns. So their projection could put him much closer to QB 14 than the QB 21 where he's currently at. And that catches my attention. He got a full off season as the QB 1, no quarterback competition. He got Chris Olave. Eventually, Jordan Tyson is going to get healthy. He got Travis Etienne Jr., Camaro, he'll get back, and some guys just got to fill in until this roster get healthy. Kellen Moore gets another year building his offense around his quarterback. So, am I telling you the draft Shook is a QB1 in a 10-team league? Nah, that's not what I'm telling you. But if you waiting on quarterback, or if you playing in a super flex, or want a QB2 with some high upside, I believe this is a great pick, absolutely. And at that price, I'm buying the opportunity. That's just where I stand on it. I got Jadarian Price coming up next, running back for the Seahawks. Now, this is one I definitely want on the sleeper board. So Seattle lost Kenneth Walker, right? He gone down to KC with the baby goats. Zach Charbonnet is still working his way back from that, I think, ACL injury. And Seattle used the 32nd overall pick on Jadarian Price. That's first round investment at running back, ladies and gentlemen. And when the team spend that kind of capital at that position, I'm paying attention. All right. So Price, he dealt with some minor lower body soreness during preseason. So Seattle have been cautious with him. But the bigger picture hasn't changed. He's got a legitimate path to a major role in this backfield, especially early on in this season. All right. So this isn't let me draft a backup. I'm drafting a young first round running back who could potentially have this backfield to itself for at least 4 to 6, 7 weeks. All right. And if Charbonnet isn't ready to handle a full workload when he comes back, Price could get opportunity increased, right? And that's the type of sleeper I like. Talent, draft capital, opportunity. All right. And if his ADP is still treating him like just another backup, that's where the value is. Number 3, we got Jonathan Brooks, running back for the Panthers. All right. Yesterday we talked about this backfield. Chuba Hubbard is still a safe player. I'm not changing that. But Brooks is finally healthy after those ACL injuries. He's been getting first team work, and Carolina has already talked about using both of these backs simultaneously. Duo running back, right? Backfield. And now Chuba has been dealing with, that little hammy issue he got going on. And that's where the opportunity starts getting interesting. I'm not drafting Brooks expecting 20 carries in week one or nothing like that. I will draft him because if he if they split and if that split becomes closer than people expect, what if Chuba misses a little time? What if Brooks simply looks better as the season goes? All right. So that's what I want from a bench running back. All right. A path to more work, more opportunities. Number 4, I got Chris Rodriguez, running back for the Jaggies. All right. So here's what I don't think enough people are talking about. You got Travis Etienne Jr. gone. Everybody immediately looked at Bayshore too, and myself included. And we all felt like Bayshore was going to be the guy. And maybe. I still believe so. But Chris Rodriguez is sitting there several rounds later. And here's the part I care about. Red zone work. Who gets the red zone work? What if he becomes the goal line guy? I mean, I don't need him to get 20 touches. Give me 10 or 12 touches and the valuable touches near the goal. And when two running backs might share a backfield, sometimes I don't want the expensive one. I could take a shot on the cheaper one, the one with a real path to multiple touchdowns this year. So keep that one in mind, man, if you're thinking about the Carolina backfield. Number 5, I got Denzel Boston, receiver for the Browns. So I like this receiver. I like this sleeper, young receiver, big body. He's moving up the depth chart. Cleveland drafted him 39th overall, and he's already been getting first team work. All right. So he can win contested catches. He can become a red zone target. Now, do I love the Browns quarterback situation? No, I do not. But that is already built into the price. He's going to be at the back of your draft, all right? Especially in these redrafts. So I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking, can this dude really earn 90 to 100 targets this season? And if the answer is yes, I'll take the shot. All right, let's go to the Raiders, man. I got Trey Tucker. Now, this one is interesting because nobody wants Raiders receivers, right? Just like a few other teams I could think of. And I understand why, truly. But sometimes that's exactly why the value exists, right? Uh, Trey Tucker, he's still going extremely late. And the Raiders have given him an opportunity to establish himself as one of their primary receivers. Now, obviously, you got Brock Bowers, who's probably going to be the first option in this passing game, and that's fine. But somebody still got to play receiver, right? Somebody still got to get those targets outside. And at that price, I'm not asking Trey Tucker to save my fantasy team. I'm just asking him to outperform a player I'm basically drafting for free, right? That's a sleeper. All right, let's move on, man. We got Dalton Kincaid, tight end for the Bears. Bills. I'm thinking about Bears. All right, so this might be more of a post-hype sleeper. We've been waiting on Dalton Kincaid, want him to take this step forever. And because he hasn't completely broken out yet, people are getting tired of drafting him. And that's good. That can create value. And, we are value seekers, trying to make profit from non-believers. So if I'm waiting on the tight end, this is the type of bet I make. I'm not paying for the breakout anymore, you know what I'm saying, like we was a couple of years ago. I'm buying it after everybody got tired of waiting for it. Sometimes post hype is where the value finally shows up. And you see that with a lot of the quarterbacks as well. But we'll talk about that on another show. Number 8, we got Tank Dell, receiver for the Texans. And here's a real late dart throw, right? Tank Dell, he's been through a lot physically, man. We know that. But he's working his way back after missing the entire last season, recovering from that major, major knee injury. In Houston, receiver room is already changed. Jaden Higgins is done for the season. They brought in Kayshawn Booty. They've added veterans. So Dale still has to prove where he fits, but we've already seen what he can do with CJ Stroud when he's healthy. So final round, Tank Dale, why not? If it don't happen, that's the flexible bench spot we just talked about. Move on. But if Tank Dale started looking like anything like he did a few years ago, now you got something that everybody else passed on and that can help you out. And you got him in the last round or two. Think about it. Let's see, Marshawn Lord. All right. And I'm going to give you one more name. All right. Green Bay Packer running back. Josh Jacobs he already dealt with a growing issue. Lord is exactly the type of backup running back who value could change immediately if Jacobs misses meaningful time, right? So that's why I keep telling y'all, man, don't just draft backup running backs because they're backups. You know, you got to draft a backup who will become value immediately if the starter went down. And sometimes you can see the starter starting to go down, you know, and it's a big difference. It's a big difference from just a backup to a backup with a pad. Big difference. So if I'm putting these guys into buckets, late round targets, I got Tyler Shook, Jadarian Price, Jonathan Brooks, Rodriguez, Kincaid. These are guys I can draft with a real plan for how they could help me. Now, I'm not saying draft all of them because you can only draft one or two guys in the last couple of rounds. But, you know, they'll be there. Upside receivers, Denzel Boston, Trey Tucker. The opportunity is there. The price is low. So let's see who takes advantage. Deep stashes, man. I got Tank Dell, Marshawn Lord. I'm buying a possibility, and if it doesn't develop, I move on. That's important. A sleeper is not a player that you want to attach yourself to for the full season and just want to hold on to him. You take the shot, you watch what happens, and if the opportunity disappear, you move on. Simple. We done. All right. And that brings us to the next part because some of these guys might already be drafted in your league. Some might still be sitting there. And then you got the other players who value has changed since your draft ended. So now we getting away from the draft board, man, and we moving straight to the waiver wire. Who are people adding right now? Who should already be on your watch list and who can you pick up before week 1 even starts? Let's get into those trending ads and waiver wire targets. After this, man, after this, we'll be right back. This is Football is Money. Yeah, yeah. You want more from Football is Money? Well, become one of our Football is Money Plus members and gain access to the Draft Dominator, to the Betting Assistant, to live draft tools, weekly picks, early content, and everything else that we have going on at Football is Money. And at the same time, you get to help this show become more and grow every day. So go to footballismoney.com and become one of our Plus members and join the fantasy family. All right, my fantasy family. Now it's time to get into one of my most favorite parts of fantasy football, and that is the waiver wire. And technically, week 1 ain't even here yet, but that don't mean you should be sitting around twiddling your fingers, because some of these drafts happened 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, and since then, depth charts have changed. Players got hurt. I mean, you name it, right? Guys got traded. Rookies started showing out and opportunities started moving around. So before everybody get locked into their week 1 roster, let's see who people are adding right now. All right. So first, understand what we're doing. This is not go drop a good player because somebody had a nice preseason game type of thing. Nah, man. We looking for situations where somebody has actually changed. You know what I'm saying? Where something has actually changed. I'm talking about either they got more opportunity, a, a clear depth chart, an injury ahead of them, a trade, more first teamwork, something that gives us a reason to believe, right? That this player's value today is higher than what it was when we drafted these teams, right? That's the waiver navigation. And then we're going to mix that up with something else I like, you know, and that's trending ads. Because when thousands of fantasy managers start moving on the same players, I at least want to know why, right? Not every trending player is somebody that I'm adding or even thinking about adding. I mean, if any of them, but every trending player is somebody worth investing. And everything that you do on the waiver wire and with these players, it all determines like it's based on what your roster look like, right? So let's go. Jonathan Brooks, we already talked about him in the sleeper section, but he's showing up on the actual ad board too, and we know why. Chuba Hubbard been dealing with the same uh hammy for the last couple of weeks. Brooks is finally healthy. Now he's getting work with the starters, and Carolina is already taking a liking and talking about how they're gonna have a duo backfield. All right. So if you drafted early and Brooks went undrafted, go look because this is exactly what I mean when I say the draft board from 3 weeks ago ain't the same board that we have today. His opportunity has increased. And you might be able to get that upside without spending a draft pick at all. Crazy, right? Hey, let's see. We got Mike Washington Jr., running back for the Raiders. Here's another one. And the reason is obvious. Genty hurt his ankle. They said it was a high ankle sprain. You know, the good news is that it appears to be more of a lower ankle sprain than that high ankle injury that everybody initially feared. But while Genty has been limited, Washington has been getting those carries. He's also making plays during preseason and getting fantasy managers' attention. So, again, this doesn't mean, Mike Washington is taking Ashton Genty's job. Let's not go crazy, right? It means if Genty misses time, who gets the football? That's the question. This is exactly the kind of backup running back I like at the end of my bench. Not because I necessarily need him today, but because his value could change overnight. And I kind of stay away from a lot of these teams in bad situations. But if you need um, running back that could potentially produce for you while the RB1 is out, that'll be a good ad. Dejon Stripling, here's one of the hotter younger receivers from preseason. You know, he's been producing, he's making plays, and the 49ers been dealing with injuries throughout the receiving room. So this is a watch the role player, right? Like how many snaps can he actually earn? And if San Francisco continue dealing with all these injured receivers, then that's where this gets interesting. I'm not waiting for 8 catches and a touchdown in week 1 before I can learn his name. So go ahead and get familiar with it now. Dejon Stribling. Next up, number 4, we got Kayshawn Booty. We already talked about this trade as well, but this is the perfect example of how somebody becomes a waiver wire target overnight. In New England, one situation. Then Houston loses Jaden Higgins for the season, and they trades for Booty. Now, it's completely different opportunity, and I'm interested because not because the trade automatically make Booty a fantasy starter, but because his path to targets just changed. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what we're looking for. Situation changes, opportunity changes, fantasy value changes. All right. So that's it. Now these next names are coming straight from what fantasy managers are doing and on these platforms. So some of these dudes have been added in tens of thousands of leagues over the last 24 hours. And they get my attention. Again, trending not don't mean automatic pickup, but it absolutely mean let's just at least find out what's going on. All right. So we got Malik Davis, running back for the Cowboys. He's been added in roughly 119,000 sleeper leagues in the last 24 hours. And that's a serious move. And people are clearly trying to get ahead of what might happen in Dallas backfield. So for me, this is more watch list, deeper league right now. But running backs are different. If the role changes, if somebody ahead of him get hurt, Javonte Williams or Dallas starts showing us that Davis is going to have a legitimate weekly role, his value can move fast. So I understand the stash, but not necessarily mean that you got to go pick up everyone that we think is or everybody that's trending. Jack Strand, QB for ATL, more than 46,000 ads in the last 24 hours. Now, this one is where league format matters, right? Normal one QB league, I'm probably not going to make this move. But Dynasty, I won't even make this in the Superflex. I go Dynasty, at least the Dynasty, then we talking. Because whenever there's uncertainty in the quarterback room, people start looking for the next guy who could potentially get an opportunity. So this is not a universal league type of an ad. It's a format specific stash. We got Barry and Brown, receiver for the Saints. He got around 39,000 recent ads. And New Orleans keep popping up when we talk about potential fantasy value, right? The Saints have opportunity opening up within their receiving group. And fantasy managers are clearly trying to identify who benefits. So this is another deep sleeper stash for me, man. I'm not expecting immediate weekly production. I'm betting on the possibility that somebody from this uh secondary receiving group separates themselves. And if Brown does, I'd rather already have him. But again, we're not going and just taking everybody that's on the trending list because how could you? You can't take everybody. Just take the one that you believe in the most. Next up, we got Kobe Young, more than 35,000 ads. So whenever we talk about a receiver attached to a productive passing offense, I'm at least trying to see like why, you know what I mean? But I think this is much more of a deep league watch list. I'm not forcing him onto a normal shallow roster right now. But if his role start growing, I don't know how it could start growing in Cincinnati. But if it do, then we have something to talk about. But I'm not really worried about it right now. We got Darren Waller, tight end. He got 32,000 ads in the last 24 hours. And tight ends are always interesting because their position can get ugly real quick. So if you got one of the elite guys, that's fine. But everybody else is searching for targets, red zone work, and opportunities. So I'm not calling Waller a must add everywhere, but if you're weak at the tight end, I understand put him on the radar, right? Another Cincinnati receiver, we got Andre Yoshivas, around 27,000 recent ads. Out of some of these deeper receiver names, this one kind of get my attention a little more because we've seen enough flashes to know that there could be something there if his role expands. And I don't mind putting Yoshi Voss at the bottom of the bench and seeing what the first couple of weeks tell us. You know, Higgins, he been having a hard time staying healthy these last couple of years. And Jamar Chase that just had that scary in practice. But if the target's not there, I move on. But if the role grows, you got there first. All right. Let's see. Who else do we have? We got Marshawn Lord, running back for the Packers. More than 20,000 recent ads. And this one makes plenty of sense to me, like we talked about earlier. Running back, you got upside, clear value if something happens to Jacobs or if he actually gets suspended, right? So this might be one of my favorite just pure stash profiles on this portion of the list because we already know how running backs work. One injury, one suspension, and everything changes, right? So all they need is one big opportunity, and suddenly a player who's barely being started anywhere becomes one of the hottest waiver claims in fantasy football. So I'd rather have that player before the opportunity arrives. All right. And that's kind of what you want to do. You want to get these guys before, like nobody knows who's what's gonna happen. But if you paying attention a little bit more than the next guy, then you can kind of get a feel for when or how these guys might have a better opportunity. So I say the strongest immediate waiver checks is going to be Jonathan Brooks, Kayshawn Booty, right? Running back upside stashes, I got Mike Washington Jr., Malik Davis, Marshawn Lloyd. My receiver watch list, I got Dejon Stripling, Andre Yoshivaz, Barry and Brown, Devon Vele, Kobe Young. Those guys cool. Deep format, specifically Dynasty, I check into Jack Strand. I check into Jack Strand. And Darren Water for the tight end flyer. All right. So here's one thing I really want y'all to watch though. NFL roster cuts. Because this fantasy landscape is about to change again drastically, right? Somebody might get cut, somebody might get traded. A running back might suddenly become the RB2. A receiver might go from being a sixth receiver to the fourth receiver. Somebody might leave one team with no opportunity and land somewhere where they can actually play, right? Like Kayshawn. So don't fall asleep this week. Simply paying attention can give you an advantage. All right. All right, so before we get out of here for this segment, don't make moves just to make moves, right? If you got a good player, I'm not dropping him because somebody scored a preseason touchdown. Obviously, right? Don't do that. But if the guy of the bottom of my roster has no path to touches, no path to targets, no upside if anybody get hurt, and somebody on a waiver does, now we need to have a conversation because that last roster spot, that's not sacred. That's a tool. It's a tool, and you gotta use it, right? So don't burn everything before week one, especially if you're using FAAB, man. I'm not trying to spend half of my budget before we even play the football game, unless something major happens. Because after week one, somebody is gonna come out of nowhere, man. I'm telling you, it happens every year, all right? And that's when everybody start throwing money around. So right now, I'm looking for cheap moves, free agents, small bids, players nobody is paying attention to just yet. I'm trying to get ahead of the rush, and I advise you do the same thing. The waiver wire isn't just somewhere you go when somebody get hurt. It's another place to build your team. Sometimes the best player on your championship roster wasn't somebody you drafted, right? So check the wire, check the depth charts, watch the first team reps, watch the trending ads too. But don't blindly follow them though. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of inquire, why is this player trending? Did his opportunity actually change? Or are people just chasing preseason numbers? Because once everybody sees the real opportunity, the price goes up. Our goal, our goal is to get there first. We want to be there first. All right. All right. But here's the problem though. We talked about all these players we might want to add, but your roster is not unlimited. So that means somebody gotta go. Get him out of there. And this is where fantasy managers start getting uncomfortable because it's easy to say, go pick this guy up, go pick that guy up. But it's harder to figure out, okay, I can go pick him up, but who am I dropping? So when should you move on from somebody? When should you stay patient? And When is that late round draft pick officially taking up valuable space on your bench? Let's talk about who we are willing to drop. Up next, yes, sir. This is Football is Money. You want more from Football is Money? Well, become one of our Football is Money Plus members and gain access to the Draft Dominator, to the Betting Assistant, to live draft tools, weekly picks, early content, and everything else that we have going on at Football is Money. And at the same time, you get to help this show become more and grow every day. So go to footballismoney.com and become one of our Plus members and join the fantasy family. All right, family, we just spent all that time talking about sleepers, uh, waiver wire, trending ads, guys to stash. But here's the part nobody likes to talk about, right? And that is, who are you dropping for these players? Because your roster only has a limited number of slots there. And the hardest part of the waiver wire isn't always finding somebody to add. Sometimes it's knowing and finding somebody who you're willing to let go. See you later. Hate to do it, but it got to be done. So let me help you out a little bit, man. Let me help y'all out a little bit with this here, and hopefully it helps, right? So let's run it down. Number one, man. What I'm gonna say is, don't hold on to someone just because you drafted them. All right, please don't. This is one of the biggest mistakes fantasy managers make. You drafted a player in round 11, cool. That don't mean you got to keep him until week 8. If the role disappears, if he gets buried on the depth chart, if somebody clearly passes him, if the opportunity you draft him in for is gone, you got to be willing to move on, man. So your draft pick is already spent. You can't get that round back. So don't compound one bad decision by holding on to him for too long. But number two, don't panic neither. Now let's go the other way. I also don't want y'all cutting good players because of every little headline. Sometimes players miss his practice. That doesn't mean you cut them. Somebody had a bad preseason game. That doesn't automatically mean you cut them. Somebody, the backup to the wide receiver one or the RB1 scored a touchdown. Come on, man. The starter haven't lost his job because of this. Context matter. You got to know why something happened. You got to know why these things are happening. Was it injury management? Uh, was that player even supposed to play, right? Was he working with the starters? Was it just one bad rep? Like, don't react to the headlines only. React to the role changes. Straight up. Number three, the bottom of your bench should have some type of upside. This is how I look at my last couple of roster spots. You ask yourself, what has to happen for this player to become valuable? If the answer is basically nothing, that's a problem, right? I want my bench guys to have some kind of path. Maybe he's the backup running back who becomes the starter, um, because the starter is known to get hurt. Maybe he's the rookie receiver moving up the depth chart. Maybe he's a young tight end earning some red zone work. Maybe he's a quarterback with a rushing upside. I don't know. I need something. If the guy on waivers has a clearer path to opportunity than the guy sitting at the bottom of your bench, make the move. Make the move. Number 4, injured players are different. This one depends heavily on your league. If you got IR spots, use them. That's free roster flexibility. If you don't have IR injury reserve, now we got to start asking questions like, how long is this player out? What did you invest in him? What is his role when he returns? Can your roster survive holding on to him? Right? That's a huge difference. Like, he might miss week 1 and he's gonna miss 2 months. Which one is it? Don't treat every injured player the same. Timeline matters, the roster size matter, RR setting matter, and the player upside when healthy matters as well. All right. Number 5, late round picks are easier to move. True. This is where I'm much more aggressive. If I drafted somebody in the 14th or the 15th round because I thought something might happen, and then I realized it's probably not gonna happen, move on. It was a dart throw. You took a shot, you missed. Cool. Take another shot. All right. A late round sleeper failing isn't a disaster. Refusing to move on from that late round pick can become a disaster. All right. I'd rather for a late pick to fail than an early pick to fail. All right. Keep it moving. Number 6, know your league depth. This changes everything. Shadow league, 10 teams, short benches, a lot of talent on waiver. You can be a little more aggressive because replacement value is high, but deep leagues, 12, 14, 16 teams, deep benches, super flex, dynasty, all of that. Now I'm holding upside longer because the waiver wire is thin. All right. So there's no universal league drop rule or nothing like that. You just got to know what replacement looks like in your league. The question I ask before I drop somebody is like, do I believe this player value can grow? If yes, I probably hold on to it. If no, I'm cool with letting it go. And there's somebody available whose value can grow. Now we gotta move. It's that simple. It's that simple. Don't confuse patience with stubbornness, right? That's the that's the line right there. Being patient, don't so look, being stubborn because you don't want to admit the pick that you might have made was wrong or you missed or something like that, then you killing yourself for ego, right? Fantasy football rewards people who adjust, not people who defend their draft until the season is over with. Your roster should evolve. Week 1 roster, then you're looking different at week 4, at week 8, playoff roster. Those should not look exactly the same all year, right? And if they do, you probably wasn't aggressive enough. Or, we'll see how it works. Sometimes you can get lucky and none of your players get hurt and everybody performs or outperforms their ADP. I'm not saying that can't happen, but a lot of the times your roster is going to evolve, right? You see it after the draft is over with, guys is already dropping, trading, and hitting the waivers, and we haven't even played a single game yet. There's plenty of movement going on with the trending ads and everything like that. So before you cut somebody, just ask, what is their role right now? Is their role growing or is it shrinking? What would need to happen for this player to become a starter, right? To become startable in your league, right? Is there someone on waivers that has a better path? Can I afford to wait? If the answer, uh, small role, shrinking role, no clear path, and then better options available on waivers, and no reason to wait, man. Just make the move, right? Make the move. The waiver is about opportunity, but roster uh, management is about flexibility, bro. So you got to be willing to change your mind at any given time. You got to be willing to admit when a situation change and use that last bench spot aggressively because fantasy football isn't having the best draft night roster, the best grade, the worst grade. It's about having the best roster when the games actually matter. And sometimes the move that wins your league starts starts with being willing to cut somebody you thought you was gonna keep all year. All right. So we talked about fantasy tips, we talked about sleepers, trending ads, waiver navigation, and who we're willing to move on from. Right. Now we're gonna bring it all together because week 1 is almost here, ladies and gentlemen. And from this point forward, your watch list matters just as much as your starting lineup. So let's close this thing out with the final drive. All right, so that's gonna bring us to the final drive, man. And if there's one thing I want y'all to take away from today's show is this: draft day didn't finish your team. It only gave you the first version of it. From here on out, you gotta manage it. You gotta watch the news. You gotta watch the injury reports. Be tuned in to the practices, watching the depth charts. All of that matters. You gotta watch who's getting first team reps. You gotta watch who's getting added, and just as importantly, you gotta understand why they getting added, because everybody can react after Sunday. Everybody can see the guy who just scored 25 points. Everybody can see the backup running back who suddenly got 18 touches. Um, you can see the receiver that just caught 10 balls last week, but the advantage comes from seeing the opportunity before the box score confirms it. All right, that's where the money at, and that's where you got to be looking, and that's where you can gain an edge over your competition. So go ahead and build your watch list now. Make sure it's fluent. You don't have to add every sleeper we talked about. You don't have to chase every trending player, but you should know the names. All right, put them on your watch list. Know who the backup running backs are. Know which receivers are climbing the depth chart. Know which rookies are getting opportunities. What injured players are coming back, and which ones that might not be coming back for a long time. And know which situation can change overnight. Because when the news hit, you don't want to be asking, who is this dude that just popped like this? And you want to already know exactly who he is and why he matters. All right. So I know that's a lot of information for my fantasy people, man, but if you tuned in, you understand, like, don't fall in love with your roster. Don't fall in love with your draft grade. Don't fall in love where you took somebody. If the information changes, you change with it. It's fantasy football. And sometimes patience wins. Sometimes making the first move wins. The key is knowing the difference. All right? The season is a long game. The week 1 roster probably won't be your week 8 roster. And that same roster won't be the one that take your team to the playoffs. And that's okay. Actually, I think that's how it should work. Championship teams get built all season long. Right? You gotta be tapped in. A draft pick here, a waiver pick up there, a trade, an injury replacement, whatever the case may be, a player everybody gave up on could be the guy that helped you out, right? And before you know it, the team you drafted, it ain't even the same. It ain't the team that helped you win the playoff, the championship game with. So the final message I got for you, man, is stay active, stay informed, keep your bench flexible, keep the waiver wire open, and don't wait for everybody else to tell you where the value is. Go out and find it first. All right? Straight up. But thank y'all for tuning in, man. Thank you for watching. I'm your host. They call me Boss. This is Football is Money, and we are.
That's a wrap. Thanks for listening to Football is Money. Find every episode and more at footballismoney.com.